And I'm going to ask Kathleen to take us through the centering time, and I'll be dropping in and out. I'm going to mute some folks when I hear a extraneous noise, so I'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Um, James, you're okay, I see, and Brian is ready to go when it's time. And Kathleen, you can take us forward.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. It's a blessing to see everybody and to reconvene in this circle that seems to be spiraling deeper and deeper and wider as we continue to gather and explore not only the legacy of Thomas Berry, but also to explore what is emerging among us, activated by his wisdom. So, in the absence of Danny Martin tonight, I will try to be our guide in this opening process of just finding our ground, finding our place, finding our space this evening so that we can really hear the word of Thomas Berry, that we can hear Brian's reflection on his wisdom, and that we can hear one another echoing and resonating with that wisdom perhaps more deeply. So for the next while, let's just take a moment to be together and to breathe together, to welcome each other, and to make this a receptive and resonant space. So I think we are all aware of how we do this. Our breath brings us into that space. For our new friends, for Dr. Robinson's students, we'll just tell you that what we do here is we simply breathe our way into a kind of quiet openness and receptivity, where we can actually hear and feel ourselves, feeling and hearing. So let's just do that together. So this evening, welcoming some students, it seems appropriate that we reflect on Thomas Berry's essay on the university in the ecological age. And I would just say to our friends, our new friends, and even all of our old friends, that the work we do in this circle is part of the great work. It is the subtle work. It is the work of literally conspiring together and conspiring with everything that is laboring to live and thrive. And we would invite all of our new friends not to be shy. So let's welcome Dr. Brian Brown to reflect with us on the chapter on the university from the great work. Thank you, Bry.
Thank you, Kathleen, and good evening, everyone. It's good as ever to be gathered together. I'd like to begin by noting that as evidence of catastrophic climate collapse becomes increasingly ominous, human agency for planetary demise is irrefutable. And while all four domains of human cultural expression and their respective institutional establishments bear responsibility for the gravity that now menaces Earth, human insight and understanding in its comprehensive regard and critical analysis as university provides guidance not otherwise found in religion, economics, or law. In its commitment to the empirical observation of its sciences, the university is able to reveal Earth in the dynamism of its primordial formation and the geochemical and biological integrity of its evolutionary development. The university's disclosure of living Earth in its history and wholeness identifies its preeminence beyond religion's myopic scrutiny of written scriptures and commentaries, beyond law's myopic construal of constitutional texts, arrogating all rights to the human and derogating Earth as mere property, beyond an economic myopia with accounting ledgers that falsify profit by severely discounting and utterly ignoring cost to planetary waters, soils, atmosphere, and other living beings. Beyond those cultural fixations and their failings, the university demonstrates the unitive cohesion and dynamic interdependence of Earth's lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere as the context from within which the human emerged and whose reflective capacities begin the elaboration of Earth as noosphere. It is, in fact, from within this global sphere of thought that the contemporary university confirms the integral continuity of the human with the whole of the Earth process, which brought it into being and by which it is sustained. If the central pathology that has led to the termination of the Cenozoic, writes Thomas Berry, is the radical discontinuity established between the human and the non-human, then the renewal of life on the planet must be based on the continuity between the human and the other than human as a single integral community. Once this continuity is recognized and accepted, then we will have fulfilled the basic condition that will enable the human to become present to the Earth in a mutually enhancing manner. But if the university recognizes the continuity of the human with and as an inherent dimension of Earth, it amplifies and deepens that coherence by extending its understanding of Earth into the unfolding dynamics of that cosmic immensity from which it was shaped. To understand the human is to understand Earth. To understand Earth is to understand the universe. To understand the universe is to peer back across some 13.8 billion years to that primordial flaring forth of astounding creativity, the quantum seed containing within itself all that would blossom as particles, atoms, galaxies, solar systems, planets, and from within Earth as microorganisms, mollusks, mayflies, magnolias, and mammals. That exuberant diversity of life among whom the universe would birth the human. Thus it is that the universe reveals itself as story, that coherent sequence of emergence, whose hearing immeasurably expands and clarifies the self-understanding of an alienated and prodigal human. In such a telling, consciousness, awareness, interiority, self-organization don't appear in isolation as the discrete and exclusive property of the human. They are found, rather, throughout the full range of universe self-expression, from the particle and atomic structures through the full array of animate beings. To fully appreciate this profound continuity is to effect one of the most significant and crucial transformations of the human psyche, with unparalleled consequence for the natural world of its present peril. We must consider, writes Berry, that modes of consciousness exist throughout the universe in a vast number of qualitatively diverse manifestations. Above all, we discover that every being has its own spontaneities that arise from the depths of its own being. These spontaneities express the inner value of each being in such a manner that we must say of the universe that it is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. Precisely in this intimate relationship with the entire universe, we overcome the mental fixation of our times, expressed in the radical division we make between the human and the other than human. This fixation that I have described as an unfeeling relation of the human to the natural world is healed in its deepest root as soon as we perceive that the entire universe is composed of subjects to be communed with, not primarily of objects to be exploited. With this animate and communal cosmology at its heart, the contemporary university weakens the sway of an earlier inexplicable natural terror, of philosophical arrogance, and a reductionistic nihilism that have long combined to effect a pernicious human estrangement from the natural world. The fearsome trauma of the 14th century Black Death, the invidious dualism of 17th century Cartesian mechanism, and a still persistent scientific materialism, disaggregating all physical complexity to but the random happenstance of just so many directionless elemental structures. Against the comprehensive breadth, intellectual persuasiveness, and emotional invigoration of its living cosmology, the university exposes the unreasonable fears, untenable conceits, and profound disorientation worked by this threesome, which it so thoroughly discredits and authoritatively refutes. Beyond that corrective, the university in its living cosmology yet works for the reclamation and reanimation of economics, religion, and law. Each of these three other fundamental expressions of human culture must, in their own discipline, attend to the universe telling its story in the full communion of its subjects, as they principally manifest in the one body of Earth. Each must discover its own capacity to reinvent a human mode of living within that body that appreciates its inestimable and ever-renewing value, celebrates its inherent sanctity, and recognizes its inalienable right, warranting its most zealous preservation and effective protection. Thank you.
Brian, thank you for that profound and truly illuminating word. You bring us even more deeply into the mysteries that Father Thomas would have us engage. And we thank you so much for that. So let's just take a moment to let Brian's illumination light up our own awareness. Let it resonate for a while. Out of that beautiful litany to and about the living universe. Let's see what is echoing in us. We'll take a minute to be quiet again. So let's share something of the light that Brian's word activated in us. And for our new friends, all you need to do is either raise your hand or make yourself obvious so that I can unmute you. And we remember that we're doing the great work right here and right now in our subtle gathering. Christopher Gonzalez, welcome.
Hello. This is my first time here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And I'd like to say, I wish to start something at Iona College to help further a connection with other natural modes. And I'd like to start like a composting pile at Iona, hopefully, maybe in the future,
Mhm.
just so we can lower our food shipping costs and also just not waste that food and just have those nutrients wasted.
Mhm.
I wish to utilize those nutrients in order to feed the earth and a garden we will hopefully have in the future.
Mhm. Thank you, Christopher. We're here to back you up on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Paola, Will you unmute?
There. I just heard him say the inexhaustible creativity, which is our Earth 13.5 billion years ago. One wants to protect that.
Mhm. Thanks, Paula, and welcome. Sister Barbara, will you unmute? Thank you.
Maybe about 5 days ago, I was out of Manhattan and I was in Rhode Island at the beach. And one dark night, I looked out the window to the sky and I beheld the stars that I used to be able to see. And that line in Thomas Berry's work about subjects, not objects, took me right back to that. All of God's work in this universe. And so often, I think I have approached them as objects and learning about them and wondering about them. But I think there's a greater truth in approaching them as subjects. So it has something to do with my own cognizance. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Catherine?
Okay, thank you. One of my favorites from, I guess, the New Testament is to be in the world, but not of it. And the part that relates to being in the world, when Brian was reading, particularly the word catastrophic, I could not help thinking about what's going on right now with the heat and the heating and the fires. And people that have not before been alarmed are very alarmed about all of these signs. And then the part, but not of it, I'm thinking about how we do relate to God's creation and the role of the university in our understanding. And I couldn't help but think of a new author, if it's okay to mention another author besides Thomas Berry. But this author is Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if that, Kathleen, you're shaking your head, you're familiar with the book. But she's native, she's an indigenous person, and she talks about how she learned things about plants by walking through the forest and listening to this other indigenous person talking about it. And then she decided she loved plants so much she wanted to go to the university. And in the beginning, they completely reversed everything that she had learned. And she had to learn something from book knowledge and something, the genus and the names and the Latin and so forth, phylum, kingdom, etc. And then eventually she came to join the two. Her knowledge of God's creation as an indigenous person, how each tree is a being. And she tells stories about how the pecan trees all fruit at the same time. And she told so many different stories about how that protects each other and things about plants that we probably, at least I never would have been aware of. And then she also combines that with her university learning. So I think she's an unusual person, and that she takes both the learning, the wonderful learning that we can get at university with indigenous natural learning as we relate not human to human, but human to being, whatever that being may be, a pecan tree, a flowering herb. So I just couldn't help thinking about her, Robin Wall Kimmerer, because she so beautifully combines those two worlds.
Mm. Thank you, Catherine. And of course, we remember that Thomas says that our way into the future will be guided by four wisdoms. and you named two of them today, maybe you named three of them today, the wisdom of indigenous peoples and the wisdom of our classical and scientific and contemporary knowledge, traditions. Thank you. James?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Brian for that really illuminating and rich reflection. And I think what I take out of this stream of insights from Barry about the university is he's really opening and empowering space for critically analyzing how we've lost touch with the universe as a communion of subjects and shifted into this false vision of the universe as a collection of objects. It's empowering in the sense that he's identifying these four key facets of human culture: governments, religious traditions, corporations, and universities. And I think that calls on us to expand our common scope of discourse, right? So often in popular context, when we're thinking about eco-crisis, we're focusing on governments and corporations, right? And then in this circle, we weave in religious traditions. And now with this essay, weaving in specifically universities. And of course, this circle is rooted at a university, Iona College. So I just find that really empowering that he's identifying those four key facets and challenging us to make these deep conversions through all of them, right? And in the university space, there's a kind of openness for critical reflection on each of these facets. So I just find that uplifting and energizing and empowering. One other thing that I will mention, and my class looked at this excerpt before our meeting, and we discussed it a little bit in our Zoom session, is that universities provide not just reflection on how we can make this shift, this pivotal shift, but significantly spaces where we can start to experience alternative modes of relating to the natural world, right? So thinking through how we're learning, where we're learning, right? And moving into maybe that vision that Catherine, that you mentioned earlier, drawing on Robin Wall Kimmerer, of learning the names of the beings of the more than human world that we're encountering. And I know that she takes her university students, out into the woods, to have sensory experiences and to start to break out of this pattern of reducing the natural world to a collection of objects. So those are just some of the thoughts that are coming up for me.
Thank you, James. It's good to have your students here. Christopher,
Yes?
did you have your hand up?
Oh no, I was just waving, saying hello.
We're going to all wave back at you
Thank you.
because we're thrilled you're here. Lisa?
I want to thank the person that just spoke about teaching and taking students out into the woods, and the things that Robin Kimmerer has spoken of also. During COVID, I was teaching a course in ethics and ecology, and my kids were all over the world, some in China and Germany and the United States, but different time zones and so on. And I think one of the things that might have helped a lot, and I wish I'd done it earlier, was I asked them to adopt a tree. Now, some of the students were in big high rises, and their tree was a little tree down in the city valley, you know, and but they were to go to their tree and watch it bloom. It was spring for most of them, and write about it, and also write about, journal a little bit about what their relationship was with the tree. And it brings, they enjoyed it. It gave them something, it got them out of their house for one thing. But it was something they'd never really done. They'd been going by trees near their houses for a long time and said, oh, we never noticed that tree or that bush or whatever it was. But I think there is that famous line, and I think it may have been Annie Dillard, that you can't love what you don't know. And I don't know that the academic world is giving us enough time to visit and to learn to feel nature and be with nature and the wonder of it. I think so much of our teaching is about moving from wonder and awe. And I hope we can somehow bring some of that in, because I think it's as powerful as can be. That's it.
Thank you, Lisa. I have to say myself, when I heard Brian's almost a canticle to the universe, I wanted to dance. There was a moment where he had what really was a litany to the natural world, to the cosmic order, to the cosmic mystery. And the awakening of feeling is so very important to this whole work of rebirthing and renewing of the human to heal this great rupture. Scott?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Lisa, I was just moved by what you were saying. I finished the great work just recently, so I'm a newbie to his writings. And the piece about the university that struck me the most was the function of the university, according to Barry, was that it should facilitate an intimate presence with the natural world, that the university's purpose should facilitate an intimate presence with the natural world. I haven't been able to kind of shake that the last couple of days since I read it. Part of me wants to speak, and I think I also remember Thomas saying that the teacher is the universe herself. Kind of does away with the university as an institution, or maybe it's just a larger institution. And I kind of, rather than speaking and teaching, I feel like I'm called to experience nature more intimately. And is that Thomas's exhortation to us? Literally, get out of your house, go adopt a tree, as Lisa was. That was just such a beautiful thing. And yet it feels so small and insignificant. Like, what is me adopting a tree gonna really do? And yet it feels like everything, or at least it's the only thing. I wanted to say the last 3 days, we discovered in my house a baby praying mantis. We found him on the window inside our house. I have no idea how he got there. And I have spent the last 3 or 4 days with my wife and my son hanging out with the praying mantis on the inside of our house. He goes from window to window. We've got a bunch of plants. And I was thinking about Thomas Berry the whole time, an intimate presence to the natural world. He's got a nickname, the praying mantis does. I named him Thomas. I don't think after Thomas Berry, but his name is Thomas, maybe because we wanted to just have an ordinary kind of relationship with him. I played a guitar song before I jumped on this meeting this evening. I have a guitar and I walked up to the window and I found him. Sometimes he's not so easy to find, but I found him and I feel silly, but I played a little song wondering what is his experience, if any. But I know I was having an experience of playing a song to a little baby praying mantis. And we said at dinner that we should probably release him because we don't think he's getting any food. We don't know any. All of a sudden, we wanted to know more about Thomas the praying mantis and what should we do? Because now we are in an intimate relationship with the natural world. My university education is just getting started. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. The praying mantis and the geologian.
Amen.
Thank you, Scott. Pamela.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody again. I loved the expression that Scott just used, the intimate presence. I have been lucky enough in my older years to have become a gardener after being in the medical world most of my time. And I have to say that when I'm in the gardens where I work, it's really huge. And I feel like I'm having an intimate relationship with God when I'm in there. My position of being on my knees constantly, weeding, is just gets me there instantly. And I feel when I first come and I just like look at it, I feel overwhelmed to the point of, sometimes I cry because the beauty is so amazing. And I feel so blessed that I'm able to have this in my life. And so I'm in a great deal of like hours of silence. And I don't exactly know how God reaches me, but I had a calling the other day, just came to me, but I'm sure it was working for a while. And I am a member of a Black church, and the women there are, they've probably never been in a garden, especially like this. And I got the idea of having what I'm calling a tea in a garden of the Lord. And I presented the idea, and the pastor and first lady thought it was a good idea. And so it'll be for the women in a few weeks. And I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing a time of silence. First, a tour. I'm going to let the owner of the gardens take them on a short tour. And this woman put in all the gardens, her and her husband and her son. They did the whole gardens, and it's many, many years old. So the plants are really mature and just amazing at this time of year. And after the tour, there'll be silence, and then silence while they're having their tea, but there will be a speaker who will, I asked to do something on, she's actually the elder, they call her mother, even though I'm the same age, she's the mother. And she's gonna be doing, I asked her to do something about God and the gardens. Okay, and there are, of course, are two wonderful garden stories, the Garden of Eden and the Garden of Gethsemane. And but I gave her, you know, free will to do what she wants, and I'm really excited because I feel like I'm doing God's work here, and I'm opening a new world to people that have never experienced the beauty of God's work. And I feel like they've suffered a lot, you know, and still clung to Jesus. And now they can see the other side of the suffering and the hardships and see the beauty that he is offering them also.
Sorry, Scott.
Pamela, I just wanted to say I'm deeply touched by your experience, what's happening to you in the garden. It just kind of strengthens. I think rather than teaching, I want to be taught. And nature, I just want to place myself more in nature. If everybody has your experience, Pamela, it seems like nature is the thing that we all need more of. Because if everybody feels like you feel, and like I feel, and inspired by what you're feeling, I think that is, well, it's everything, perhaps. Thank you for sharing that very much.
Thank you.
Sister Teresa.
Today, Marie and I had our annual experience of picking blueberries. For 47 years, we have been going to the same place every July to pick blueberries.
Oh my. Oh my.
Pass them around, Teresa.
We have 20 pounds, which is our annual picking.
Wow.
And they last us all year long. We spend several hours just with the bushes and the berries. And we hear the thrush singing. And it is a wonderful, it is something that an experience we have treasured all these years. I don't know how much longer we can do it, but here's the bounty of the earth for which we are most grateful, and which we experience all year long on our cereals and in desserts. And it reminds us of this wonderful experience with the earth.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Teresa. I can smell them.
Every berry has full flavor. It's not like when you buy them in the stores where they're dead flavor. With these, every single berry, and they're different. Some sweeter, some sour. It just is wonderful.
True. Hello, Frederica.
So you recognize me. I'm usually able to change the name, but it won't change. We have an account in our company account, Social Explorer, but I'm Frederica Rudel and I teach. I'm Professor Emeritus at Iona College. And one of the reasons that I haven't attended these before, but I wanted to sit in because Iona is actually a charter member of the Environmental Consortium of colleges and universities, about 62 colleges in the Hudson Valley region. And the very forum itself was the first to receive the award of that consortium, the Great Work Award. And I was reminded of course, the Great Work, the book, and this chapter especially that inspired me so many years ago. And the consortium has sort of lost steam and it's been on hiatus for a while, but Lucy Johnson from Vassar has gotten together a group to try to revive it or figure out what it could become. And it's reminding us all of the importance of the university and education, and as has been mentioned here, of course, before. And some things that have been said about that experience of nature and that learning from nature. It reminds me that just before I retired from teaching, all of my students were really paying more attention to their smartphones than to anything else, it appeared. And I wonder if that is a hindrance to their ability to, or if they feel that it interferes with their ability to learn from nature or their desire to learn from nature. In my generation, it was TV, and I spent far too many hours in front of a TV set, so I'm guilty as well. But it occurred to me that the students might have an opinion about that, and perhaps younger children are communing with nature more as they are learning about life itself and nature, and do they lose that as they get to the college level, or are they inspired to learn more in different ways? And the other thought I had was the warnings that we've had, especially with the weather patterns and things that are reminding us of climate change and that it is here, and an inconvenient truth, and it's more and more real every day, and how that should give us impetus to work harder, to do what universities can do, or educational institutions of any kind.
Thanks, Frederica, and thank you for all that you have done to make Iona a place where the great work is unfolding and the new story is being heard. Thank you for that.
And I'm so glad to see that Iona is moving more in that direction with your institute as well. And I'd love to talk to Christopher about composting.
Right, me too. I want to hire Christopher, so get in touch with me, Chris.
It may happen. Facilities is working on it.
And Pamela.
I'd just like to say something to Scott about the praying mantis. I'm sure you've read up on him and found out that they are wonderful for the environment. They eat the bugs that destroy our plants and stuff. And so I think that maybe if you just take out the screen behind the window and let him jump out, he will have a good life out there. And I think the last time at the meeting, Scott, you spoke about your experience in nature, taking a hike. Is that correct? Yes. And so as we open, God gives us more and more things to see. And so it's not surprising that you got a praying mantis to connect with. Okay. Thank you.
Friends, Jane Ann, please.
So many things resonate with me from what everyone has said, but one of the things that I think about is, as a part of all of this, is the resilience and the fertility of nature. And I started gardening a few years ago, and I, quite surprisingly now, every year I get all of these volunteer tomato plants that come from seeds that have wintered over, which is so surprising to me. So it's like I have a jungle in my backyard from all these tomato plants that that are there, which is really quite remarkable. And I think that there's so many instances of the fertility of nature and how what we think is dead coming to life. And I was at a concert last night in you know, an open concert. It was absolutely beautiful. And I looked up and I was so aware of the trees around me. And I looked up and I actually, I think for the first time in my life, saw a cloud forming. I had never seen, you always see clouds, but I had never seen a cloud actually coming into existence. And one of the things that really resonated with me in this chapter is how he talks about that it's not a course. It's not just a course that a college would give, but that it's really a transformation of every subject, every course, every way of being. And finally, I've thought about this for many years. I really think language is important. And we keep calling it climate change when it's not climate change. We should be using much stronger language. It's climate destruction, it's climate disruption, but to kind of have this benign label put to what we're experiencing, I don't think really sufficiently mirrors what's going on. And you know, I express that whenever I can. So anyway, those are my thoughts that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane Ann. Friends, I'm realizing that we're coming toward the circle of our hour. And our practice is to take a moment now again and sense the fullness that is rising in us from the gift and the grace of each other's open and transparent sharing about how this mystery of communion is happening in your life. I'm sure that each and every one of us could speak about such not only a moment of communion, but perhaps we are really beginning to move into a season of communion, a way of being that is communion, a steady state way of being in this world. Brian spoke about the phase of the great work that we seem to be about at this time. Just briefly, he mentioned the way that we are, in a sense, weaving the noosphere, weaving a new mode, a new field of human awareness and consciousness. Perhaps we are not weaving it, but perhaps we are resonating with this noosphere that is gathering greater and greater realization. And I think that this is the work that we do in this circle. The work of gathering as a circle of contemplative ecologists is to do the great work, which is so subtle, but of opening a space that is safe and receptive to our own stories of intimacy and falling in love with and romancing the earth, the cosmos. We need circles like this and others besides. So let's just see if anyone wants to put another thread in the weave this evening as we say goodnight to each other, a word, a sentence, that much, so that we might weave it up. Jean. Jean.
Am I on mute? No, I'm okay. I want to pull a few thoughts that have gone. The sentence that was said by Brian was that every atomic structure has a consciousness. I want to get to Tom's praying mantis. I was trying to make a huge decision in my life, and there was a spider that outside of my window when I was driving the car sat in the mirror. And I want you to know that it stayed with me for 2 weeks. That meant on the Merritt Parkway, on I-95, down to New Jersey to visit my daughter and back. And I couldn't understand why this spider stayed with me. And he never left. He would make in the nighttime a web around my window. I would climb in the other part and get into the car so I did, and he would go back into my mirror. I shared this with a holy person, and she says it symbolically means you're going to make a decision, and life is very fragile. I made the decision to take a position. What I'm trying to say to Tom, your praying mantis is talking to you. I then took a job in a hospital, and it also had assisted living. And they kept all the patients in the hospital, and I wanted them out into nature. So eventually I got the administration to agree that these elderly people didn't have to be cooped up. Let's get out into nature. Now, this is where the story absolutely blew my mind. I had brought out into nature butterflies. I had them, and there was a little chrysalis, and one of the patients got so upset, and he killed and crushed the chrysalis. That led to a whole upsetment. I looked up about chrysalis, and I found out that in a chrysalis, the scientists had tried to open it up to understand the butterfly. And once they opened it, of course, it died. And they found out that the butterfly needed to stay in a chrysalis, and it hurts. A little tiny, they have to eat that hard shell, and they have to break it open, and it takes everything of their energy to emerge. I use that in the talk to my elderly people, and that led to a whole discussion of suffering, a spiritual, how we have to suffer in hard situations. They then wanted all of their relatives to come listen to this talk about suffering. So through the spider, to the chrysalis, to the butterfly, nature was able to have me give a talk on suffering. And we don't know how nature wants to speak to us and how it brings us out into it. So I know that was a long story and a long thread, but Tom, listen to your praying mantis. It's talking to you. Okay.
Scott?
There we go. Yeah, I wanted to say that I've fallen in love with all of you in this group tonight, a little bit from a distance, but because of your stories of nature. Your stories of nature. And I'm thinking that maybe we'll love each other more if we share our deep experiences with nature, with each other. I'm absolutely in love tonight with this circle of people, and I don't want it to end. And I'm going to go find my praying mantis and wish him good night. Thank you all.
Thanks, gosh. That's a beautiful way to bring our circle to its to this moment of pause until we come together again. And as Scott says, let's, there are probably very few really circles of celebration where we can bring this kind of cosmic nature mysticism into language with each other and allow the vibration that Scott's calling love to be raised up. And so let's just take this moment of a breath to literally bless each other and let ourselves be blessed by the spiders and the praying mantises and the blueberries, the beauty of each of us. And let us extend this energy throughout the world this night to those laboring and to survive the fires, the floods, the droughts, the extraordinary upheavals. Our work is subtle in this circle. We, of course, have other work to do, but there is a mystical suturing that needs to happen as we do the healing of our beautiful and loving mother. So till we see each other again next month, be safe and be well. Christopher, I'm serious. I want to hire you, so try to get in touch with me.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Good
Night.
to see you all. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Good night.